In this video, I'm going to talk about common setup problems based on ball position and swing faults that are derived from having the ball in the wrong position, and how to simply make these changes to not only hit the ball more cleanly and more crisply and get a better launch angle, but in the second part of the video, I'm going to talk about how it's going to help you pick up more club head speed. So first, what I want to talk about is the number one flaw that we see in all the lessons I've ever given, thousands and thousands of lessons. Hands down, the most common fault that we see at setup with the ball position is having it too far back in your stance. This happens out of the subconscious fear to make sure that we can make the contact. If you hit a couple fat ones, you start moving the ball further and further back, and then what you end up is in this never-ending cycle that as you hit a fat shot, you move the ball further back in your stance. It makes your swing faults worse. You shift your weight less, because if you shifted your weight properly, you'd top the ball, and your divot would start out of here. You'd miss the ball completely. So what happens is you start all of a sudden, making these changes because you're hitting the ball fat and trying to fix the wrong thing. Moving the ball position up in your stance is actually the solution when you're hitting the ball fat a lot of times. Not all the time, but in most amateur golfer cases, when they start moving the ball further and further back, they start hanging further off their right leg, start doing this kind of motion, and then it just leads into a million faults that you can't fix without getting your weight shift corrected. You can't fix your weight shift without having the ball in the correct position, because as I said earlier, you'd literally completely miss the ball. So the number one thing that you need to check, and you need to do this daily, every time you go to the range, throw a shaft down and then throw another shaft down so you can see where the ball is at in your setup. And if the ball looks like this, when you're set up parallel, perpendicular to another shaft going down the target line, it's too far back in your stance, and you're going to have all kinds of issues with your swing, because weight shift is one of the most important fundamentals in your swing. You have to have it for power and consistency. And so when the ball is this far back in your stance, you're going to have to hit it off your back foot, which is going to lead to a multitude of problems. Okay, so number one problem, just make sure the ball is up off the logo of your shirt, off the left side of your left ear, for right-handed golfers, of course. And now you'll be able to turn back behind it. And as you shift forward, you won't be getting out in front of it. You'll be shifting back to the ball, and then you can make good contact and release the club. So that's number one problem. Number two, and this is a different one that you probably haven't heard before. I want to talk about how from down the line, having the ball at the right distance actually helps you pick up club head speed. So let's look at this fault.